In this video, I want to give a quick overview of how the web works and how the internet kind of works. So what I want to look at is we're going to start here with our browser. So this is our browser window. It has a back and forward button and a URL bar. Now when you type a URL in here, something pretty magical happens in your computer and in the web. Specifically, the URL that you type, something like google.com or facebook.com, those URLs are for humans only. They're not for computers at all. Computers are instead interested in something called an IP address. And an IP address is basically just the computer's version of where to find a computer online. So where a URL is the human's version of the name of that computer, the IP is the computer's version of the name of a computer. And IP addresses often look something like this. We have a bunch of numbers sort of connected together like that. So that would be sort of a standard IP address. So when we type a URL into our browser, the browser doesn't necessarily care about the URL. It cares more about the IP address. The IP address is the thing that's actually the name of the computer that you want to connect to. So say, as an example, we want to go to google.com. So we type google.com into our URL here. We hit enter and something happens. Our browser needs to know the IP address. So what it does is it goes out onto the internet and it connects to something called a DNS. The DNS is basically just a big database of URLs to IP addresses. So our browser connects to the DNS and it says, I'm looking for google.com. It sends the URL and it says, I'm looking for a specific website. And the DNS probably knows that. So it sends back the IP address to your browser for that specific website that you want to connect to. So from all of this now, our browser now has an IP address that it can connect to and get to that website at. So what it does is it goes out onto the internet and connects to a server. Knowing the address of that server, it can connect directly to it because that server is at the IP address that we want. So then your browser asks that server, it says, I'm looking for google.com. And that server says, oh, I have google.com, and it sends back an HTML file. Now, all of this stuff happens really, really quickly. Your browser doesn't really take time doing this, and your computer doesn't really take time doing this. But what's happening here is there's actually a whole bunch of connections going on out on the internet. Another example would be if you connect to this DNS server over here, but it doesn't know what that IP address is, your computer actually may go and connect to another DNS server. There's actually a whole bunch of DNS servers propagated throughout the world, so your computer may go connect to this DNS server and ask for the IP address from there and get it from there instead. All this stuff is happening really quickly. But as soon as your browser gets back the HTML, that's when the crazy stuff starts happening. The HTML file is a reference to all of the content on the site, as well as all of the assets that are needed to display the website. So things like the images and the design, the CSS, the videos, the audio, that's all referenced from inside of the HTML. So as soon as your browser starts parsing the HTML, it finds maybe it hits an image. And that image is at the same URL, so then it goes back here to this server and it gets the image and your browser downloads it. Then maybe it finds another image and it does the same thing. Then maybe it finds a video and it goes over here and gets it. But now maybe it finds a YouTube video. So YouTube is actually on another server over here. YouTube. But your browser has never connected to YouTube before. So now it has to go to the DNS and it has to say, I'm looking for YouTube. The DNS sends back another IP. Then your computer connects to the YouTube servers and your computer asks for a specific video, which YouTube sends back to your computer. So every website is actually a huge combination of a whole bunch of different computers working together on the internet. And your computer is downloading all this stuff back and forth from all these servers in order to actually display a website. A website is not just one thing. It's made up of a whole bunch of different components connected together. And I'm sure you've noticed while browsing websites that different things load in at different times, like the images take longer to load and the videos take longer to load because they're all being loaded individually. That's generally what happens when we view a website in our browser.